Today is the first Sunday of Lent, and the order in the gospel is a little bit different in Matthew and Luke. In Matthew and Luke, the second and third temptations are flipped. In the Gospel of Luke, you have the stones into bread. You have the showing the whole world, worship me and all this is yours. And then lastly, the parapet of the temple, jump, and people will be astounded. In the Gospel of Matthew, it flips so that the compromise is at the end, and then the entertain is the second one. The first one is the same. What you have in the idea of turning stone into bread, again, the desert around Israel, not a very attractive place, also extremely hot. When I was there in mid-May, one time it was about 105, 106 degrees. It's also very rocky, so it's easy to say, just turn these stones into bread, because after all, God might have forgotten you and you have the power to do it. So exercise your power and change it yourself. So again, that's the compromise, the first. The other one is to look at the world, just worship me, compromise, just like the Romans, back at the time of early Christianity. A lot of them were like, listen, the judges were like, listen, you can worship Jesus, you can worship anybody. I don't care who you worship. Just go over there and put the little bit of incense by the statue of Caesar, and you can worship anybody. So that idea of compromise, worship me and I'll give you what I have. And so that's the second. And then the third is entertain them. You're going to be the greatest musician of all. Just jump down from the temple, because after all, Psalm 16 says that if you do that, you're going to float like a feather, down to the ground, and people will ooh and ah, and they will be entertained, and you will get all these great crowds coming around you to see, this great person who was able to jump without being injured or killed, but instead floated like a feather down to the ground. And so one of the things that helped me to think about is, what are the temptations that are there in our life, and what are the impediments to overcoming those temptations? And I think the first one would be the idea that sometimes God allows for temptation to help us to maybe go to move on from the past. Maybe we need counseling to help us to move on from the past. That can be a great blessing. So allowing temptation, because it will help us to think that maybe we do need that extra help, that additional support to help us to be able to move on, and then being able to do that successfully. So again, the idea, first one can be that God allowing this temptation because of helping us to be healed. The second is, sometimes we think, okay, we got this. Okay, I know, Lord, I failed for the 744th time, but I got this, I don't need your help. I can do it by human willpower. I can overcome those temptations of the devil. No problem. I can do it myself. And then the failing for the 745th time. So again, sometimes we think that we're stronger than the devil. We're more powerful than the devil, that we can do it just by human willpower alone. I always think that the greatest example of human willpower is in St. Peter, who says to the Lord, no matter what happens at the Last Supper, no matter what happens, I'm going to be with you no matter what. And when there was fear and the fact that he could be put on trial, that he could be crucified just like Jesus, again, he denies Jesus 3 times. So that's really human willpower, notoriously weak, but yet we think that it's somehow stronger than the temptations of the devil. So that. And then lastly, that idea of mystery. We think of St. Paul in 2 Corinthians chapter 12. He talks about the thorn in the flesh. And what is that thorn in the flesh? Well, it could be physical ailment, it could be temptation, whatever it may be. But I think no matter what, it has an application to today. And so this is from 2 Corinthians chapter 12. It says, to keep me from being too elated by an abundance of revelation, a thorn was given me in the flesh, a messenger of Satan to harass me, to keep me from being too elated. 3 times I besought the Lord about this, that it should leave me. But he said, my grace is sufficient for you. My power is made perfect in weakness. And I will that all more gladly boast of my weakness, that the power of Christ may rest upon me, that the power of Christ may rest upon me. So again, sometimes, we ask the Lord to help us to overcome those temptations. And yet sometimes we're still persisting in those temptations, still falling on occasion, hopefully, getting a little better, hopefully, getting a little wiser, hopefully, having a little bit more healthy dependence upon the Lord. But sometimes we still do that. And so why is that? We're not doing it in our own strength. We're not doing it on our own power. But again, sometimes it is that mystery in our lives. So, why the Lord is allowing it, sometimes it is that mystery. So when we think about temptations, we think about the Lord who was tempted by the devil, tempted to turn stone into bread, tempted to worship him, to receive all the power that he has, to power and also to the power to jump from the temple and floating down like a feather to entertain the people. And sometimes we have those temptations, a temptation to maybe not to dwell on the past, and maybe we need some help in doing that and going beyond that. Sometimes we have the temptation to fight in our own willpower. And then lastly, sometimes those temptations are just a mystery in our lives. So thanks and God bless.